I'm extremely delighted to be in front of you all to discuss a profound topic, the future of educational reforms in the evolving landscape of AI. So we have to compete with machines now to become good teachers. Am I right? Yes. How many English teachers here? 2. Okay. So those are the language teachers. How many math teachers? So many math teachers. Okay, great. Physics? Biology? Okay. Okay, so you have a good mix of all types of teachers here. So what I thought first was I would deliver a speech separately to each one of you. And then I decided that I should introduce to you all the philosophy behind knowledge. So how many of you have heard the word epistemology? Is this a smart board? Huh. I think. Can you all see this? Is there anything that I can write with? Yeah, here. Okay. Thank you. Oh, yeah, I know that. Oh, wow. Okay. So this is to go back to that.
Yeah, system.
To the system. Okay.
That's what I did.
ബാറ്ററി അതിലുണ്ടല്ലോ ആ ബാഗിലുണ്ട് ഓക്കെ Okay, here we go. Epistemology is the knowledge of knowledge itself. Knowledge has a structure. So we must first know what can be termed as knowledge. So we have had Indian epistemology, we have had many religious epistemologies. What are the criteria for something to be called knowledge? All would be discussed first. And then, as you saw, there are 3 topics, and under that we are going to have different subtopics. Epistemology is one, and the next is ontology. Ontology is the study of reality, the study of truth. And the next is cognitive science, the study of the mind, the human brain, and how we, and then as teachers we are all going to deal with the minds of children, right? So we should know how our mind works. So firstly, I'll tell you, I'll draw a Venn diagram here, and I'll give you the definition of knowledge. So we have our beliefs here, and then here we have the truth. So we can believe in so many things, right? But belief in the truth, this area, so this intersection, can I just call this knowledge? No. Knowledge is a subset of this. It's not just the belief in the truth alone what makes knowledge, but it's also the right justification. Okay, so if I believe in something, like say if I say my shoe store yesterday and sun is a fireball, okay, they individually are true statements. And now if I say my shoe store yesterday because sun is a fireball, that's wrong justification, right? There's no logic in it. So if I believe in truth with the wrong justification, it cannot be called knowledge. So for justification, what can be the criteria, or what basis will you justify something? Like, how do we know what we already know? For this, in India, we have the ancient Pramana Shastra. Pramana means proof. proof theory. So in the modern philosophy of knowledge, again we have proof theory. There are different types of proof. For example, like how many math teachers? So many math teachers here, right? So in math, how many types of proofs do we have? I want it to be an interactive session, so please speak. Yes?
Contradiction.
Proof by contradiction. Okay, good. Induction. Then deduction. Okay. So I would say that in mathematical sciences, we have only two types of proofs. One is induction, another is deduction. So what is induction? Checking for every possible case. So if I say that everybody here is, I do not know your heights, but I just assume that you're all going to be shorter than 6 feet. I do not know. How can I check the statement? I'll have to measure each one individually, right? But in some cases that wouldn't be possible. Like what? Like in the case of, say, natural numbers. You have an infinite set to check for, so you can't check. And therefore we have the principle of mathematical induction, right? Yes. So then we have proof by deduction. So what is proof by deduction? Reasoning, correct? So proof by contradiction is a kind of reasoning, correct? So proof by contradiction comes under deduction. Okay, who can tell me who gave us the idea of proof by contradiction? Anybody? How many of you have heard of Leibniz? Leibniz? Okay, what else did he contribute? Calculus, correct? So it was Newton and Leibniz who gave us calculus, right? Okay, so leave alone that. Now coming back to this, so we have in mathematical sciences, we have proof by induction and deduction, correct? Okay, it works with the hand, okay. So what is induction? Looking for the veracity of the statement, means the truth value of the statement for each individual case. And then deduction is saying that this particular statement is true because something else was true. Correct? But how do you know that this was true? Something else was true, right? But then how do you know that that was true? So it is an infinite recursion. Correct? So if we go this way, where will we end? A proof and the proof of the proof. So where should we start? There should be some starting points, right? I can't just keep going and saying this is because of that and that and that. So what are these starting points called? They are called axioms. So what are axioms? These are considered self-evident truths. Why did I say considered? Because we can never know about the complete truth value of anything. Okay? So we are using our senses to find or to understand the reality of a world, but how can we be sure? We'll never be able to be sure, right? And therefore, we'll have to assume certain things like the shortest distance between any 2 points is a straight line. How do you know this? Duh, we know it, right? So likewise, we have so many foundational statements. These are going to be the building blocks of bigger statements, and we are going to use these foundational blocks to build the bigger statements, correct? So we use logic onto these foundational blocks. So this logic is the glue that we use to stick these foundational blocks to make bigger statements. And what do we call them? Theorems. So theorems always need proofs, but axioms don't. You know why? Because axioms are inherently considered true, right? I do not know how many mathematics teachers are there. I think a whole lot. Okay, but there is a reason why I'm introducing math first. You'll soon understand the whole structure of knowledge. Human knowledge has a hierarchy. So this structure can be learned through the subject called epistemology. It's not just the structure alone. We'll also check for the veracity, the truth value, and the various ways or paths to reach the reality. Okay, so starting with mathematics. Why did I say mathematics? There's a reason, you'll soon understand. Okay, so you saw that when I make a statement in math, how do I know that it's true? I can either use induction to check for every possible case, or I can use deduction. But when you start deducing, you should definitely know something to start with, right? And what are these called? The axioms. So my question is, are there finite number of axioms or infinite number of axioms? Infinite number of axioms. So math can never be bound. Can you tell me what theorem states that there are infinite number of axioms? Any idea? Okay, so in the 1930s, this person, a mathematician called Hamilton, was trying to figure out all the axioms that are there. If there are, we do not know if they're finite, but he just wanted to find out how many axioms were there. And there were so many mathematicians involved in this process. And then in a mathematics seminar, a young mathematician, his name was Gödel. So what is the theorem's name? Come on. Anybody knows this? It's called Gödel's incompleteness theorem. So what he tried to prove was, again through logic, what he tried to prove was that if math is to be consistent, consistent means there should not be any contradictions in math. So if math is to be consistent, we cannot have finite number of axioms. So we should have infinite number of axioms. So it's a selection between consistency and completeness. So if you want to finish off math just by studying all the axioms that are there, no, you can't. Because if you start with finite number of axioms, you have to admit at least one inconsistency somewhere down the line. You understand? Yes. So now if I am to select between inconsistency and incompleteness, which one would I select? I would rather go with incompleteness, right? Let math be incomplete, but I don't want any inconsistency in my knowledge. And that is exactly what they did. Okay? So if we start with finite number of axioms, then math won't be mathing anymore. Correct? Okay. Where's the eraser? No, can I? Okay, that's what I wanted. Okay, so now we need the right justification for something to be called knowledge, right? So this justification in mathematics comes through only two ways: induction and deduction, and proof by contradiction, as they said, is a kind of deduction, correct? And there are many other ways also. Okay, reductio ad absurdum. What does that mean? Again, proof by contradiction. So we start with certain assumptions, and then later we see that there's something absurd that it leads to, and therefore it cannot be true in the first place. Correct? Yes. Now the whole of mathematics is built upon these axioms. Okay, so you combine the foundational blocks and then you get bigger theorems, and then bigger theorems, and then bigger theorems. Okay, it's just the permutation and combinations of these axioms built upon one another as the whole of mathematics that is there. Okay, like say if we had to learn Pythagoras' theorem, there's something else that you have to learn, some prerequisite that you have to understand Pythagoras' theorem. So if you have to look for the proof of Pythagoras' theorem, oh, by the way, can I take Pythagoras' theorem as an axiom? No, I cannot. You know why? Axioms should be self-evident and any fool should be able to understand it. That the shortest distance between any 2 points is a straight line can be taken as an axiom because even a cat knows it, right? It knows that it has to dart towards its prey in a straight line. Correct? Yeah, the prey might run helter-skelter to dodge the cat. So, but the cat knows, right? So, any sane person knows what? That the shortest distance between any 2 points is a straight line. And therefore, we can consider that as an axiom. Whereas Pythagoras' theorem is not so evident. It doesn't strike me. Correct? By the way, it's not Pythagoras' theorem. Even like some 1,000 or even 2,000 years before, so many people knew it. So they built the pyramids. They're all perfectly right angled, right? Yeah, so the Indians, the Chinese, the Egyptians, the Sumerians, they all knew Pythagoras' theorem. Okay, even the proof was not from Pythagoras. Okay, so as mathematics teachers, you should know a little about the history of mathematics as well. So now, I make a statement, and that's the Pythagoras' theorem, okay? Now, what else should I learn to understand the Pythagoras' theorem? Similarity, wonderful. Similarity of triangles. So now if you see, there's always a logical flow. You start with certain axioms, and then you combine them, and then you have a new statement. Okay, so you can make a machine work with 99% accuracy, but not a human body with 99% accuracy, right? That is because of the complexity involved. Okay? So, but we are in the process of understanding things. Okay? And as we learn more and more biology, through chemistry, we can understand psychology. How? So this is the somatic view, the body view of this. Psychology is about the mind, right? Mind is the software and the brain is the hardware. Okay, so the materialistic view of the mind is that it is all functioning through the chemistry, the neurotransmitters, correct? So we have learned about how many biology teachers? Okay. So dopamine, serotonin, epinephrine, norepinephrine, right? So many biological molecules, I mean hormones and neurotransmitters that controls our mood, our psyche, correct? Yeah. So, but we are still not in the full, like we haven't acquired the full knowledge of all these things. Okay? But this is the path. So this, what I would call is the route map of knowledge. Okay? So through chemistry, I can come to biology. We have a hierarchy of knowledge. Okay? So this hierarchy was given by Conte. That's how you pronounce his name, Conte. Okay? So this hierarchy was given by Conte, and then I elaborated it. I just tried to make it bigger because later we have had what? This was in the 1800s, late 1800s. So then now we have had so many subjects, right? Knowledge has expanded. So what am I trying to do? Build the grand formal structure of knowledge. Okay? So this hierarchy begins with what you call formal sciences. So what are formal sciences? Sciences that require only human thought alone and nothing else. You don't need any sensory input. You don't have to see, you don't have to do any experiments, no observation required like what mathematicians do. Have you ever seen a mathematician doing an experiment? No, they don't have to. All they need is just sheer thought, correct? They start with axioms. Also, if you just change your premises, if you change your axioms, you will have a different type of maths. Do we have such different types of maths? Any idea? Like say you change the axiom and you get a new type of math. All the geometry that you're learning is called the Euclidean geometry, right? Is there an alternate geometry? Yes. It's called Riemannian geometry, right? So if you start with certain axioms and just follow the rules of mathematics, and then you get one kind of knowledge structure, then you change the axioms. What do you get? Another kind of knowledge structure. Correct? Okay. So in the formal sciences, we're all interested only in the logical flow, and for this you don't need to do any experiments, nor do you need any empirical data. Correct? So what all come under formal sciences? I would put logic first. Mathematical logic, or some call it mathematical logic. I call it logic by itself. Okay? And it is through logic that we reach mathematics. How many of you have heard of Bertrand Russell? Russell's paradox. Never heard of Bertrand Russell? Okay. So this was in the 1900s. This mathematician called Russell and another mathematician, Frege, F-R-A-G-E. Okay, so these two mathematicians tried to prove that everything in math that is there could be derived through logic. So what stays as the foundation for math? It's logic. Okay, and through logic we come to math, and from math we can go to statistics, right? Do we have to do any experiments to develop the idea of statistics? The formulae in statistics, they're all just modeled through math, and you don't have to do any experiments. Though like we gather data and everything, that is something that we do outwardly, right? But how do we develop the formula? You don't need any outward knowledge, any knowledge of the physical reality to develop the idea of statistics. Okay, you can just sit at a place, think, and you can think of some values, their variations, all those things. You don't have to actually do the thing, right? So we can apply statistics somewhere, that's a different thing. But the idea of statistics is itself coming from where? Mathematics, correct? Okay, but there is something that's connecting all of them that I would say is also under the formal sciences. You know what it's called? It's called linguistics. Not everything in linguistics, these morphemes, phonemes, all these things, you leave alone. Okay? How many of you have heard of Noam Chomsky, a famous linguist? A contemporary is still alive? Have you heard of his universal grammar? What's universal grammar? There's something underlying in all languages, correct? And it's somewhat kind of mathematical. You want a demo? Yes, formal analysis of language. You don't have to think of any specific language. Okay, the grammar, the syntax, everything will be different in different languages. But there's something foundational that you would find in all languages, and you can get that through what? Going and just doing the field work, gather information about all these languages, and then study. But even without them, you can find that there is something foundational without actually studying about language. I'll give you an example. Think of this. 2 phrases. Okay? So there are students in maths, there are students in physics. Okay? And I write 2 phrases here. Those who failed in both, stand up. Okay? And then those who did not pass in both, stand up. Okay? Are they same or are they different? Okay, how many of you say they are same? Raise your hands. Are they the same? Is there any difference in the meaning? Okay, I can see that mostly math teachers are not raising their hands, and English teachers might say, you should never use a negative sentence when you use both. Is that so? What should I be saying then? Neither, right? No, this is also right, and I'll tell you how. Think of Venn diagrams, okay? These are students who are learning maths. These are students who are learning physics. Okay, so Alice, Bob, Charlie, David, okay? So many people. By the way, Alice, Bob, Charlie, David are all who? No idea? These are all just fictional characters that we introduce in a subject called cryptography, computer science. Okay, by the way, coming to this, that's the whole class, and then we have J, K. Okay, those who failed in both, who are they? JK. Okay, those who did not pass in both. Did A pass in both? No, A did not pass in both. So this one, what set do you get? Those who failed in both? J and K. And those who did not pass in both? A, B, C, F, G, H, I, J, K. So what do you understand from this? Yeah, you know what? This particular structure that you saw, it doesn't have to be in English. In every language it's going to be the same, correct? So there's some foundational math that is there in language, and that is what you call the formal universal grammar. You understand? Whom should you read for this? Chomsky. Okay. So you've understood that there are certain forms of knowledge where you actually don't need any empirical input. That means you don't have to do any experiments. You don't have to use your senses. Just through sheer thought alone, you can come to certain conclusions, right? Yes. So that is what you call formal knowledge. Okay? What I would do is there a way that I can reduce the size of this pen? Okay, so many icons. I have this is next. This one. Ah, okay. Okay, I'll use my finger. I can see that the fingers, no. Here, that's the size. Okay, clear. Okay, it's here. Formal sciences. Okay, whatever. And now we have what? Under that you have the list, right? So you saw logic, math, statistics, and then we have linguistics, correct? Not everything of linguistics we saw, right? Yeah. And I didn't put it here. I just put it here because it's language that holds all these things together. We use language to express knowledge, right? So everything of language is not under formal sciences. And you can see that there is a flow, correct? Through mathematics, I develop statistics, correct? Okay. So the next are empirical sciences. What are empirical sciences? No amount of logic will tell you that the heart pumps blood. How do you know that the heart pumps blood? You have to see it. How do you know that the white light has 7 colors? And in fact, it has so many colors, but you have to see it, right? So to know about the physical reality, the physical world, what should you do? You should use your senses. So when you use your senses to understand the physical world, our senses can cheat us. They are very deceptive. And therefore, what should we do? We should use these formal sciences. So we have techniques, mathematical techniques, statistical techniques to check. How many Tamil speaking people here? Okay. So kannale kaanbadum poi? Yes. Thira visaripade, correct? What is the thira visaripade? And that is the formal analysis. Okay? So what we do was like, we are not going to accept things as they are. Instead, what are we going to do? Analyze it mathematically. We'll take an experiment, we'll analyze it mathematically, and then finally we say, this is this. You understand? So in the beginning of empirical sciences 4, we have, what? Astronomy. What does it mean? It's not just the study of the outer space. Astronomy is the study of every space that is there. The space, matter, energy, time, and the interactions, right? And through astronomy, through observing the astronomy and applying the mathematics of it, we come to physics. You know what I'm teaching you right now? Oh, by the way, I'm not teaching you anything. I don't have any more credentials than you all have. I'm just sharing my knowledge. Okay? This is not to belittle your knowledge. You all will have your own strengths. Okay? But it's customary to assume that the listener is ignorant of the subjects that I'm speaking, just for the sake of completeness. Okay? Okay. So astronomy, we come to what? Physics. Through physics, we can come to chemistry. But how? Yeah, you learn a lot of physics, and then you come across relativistic physics, quantum physics. Then what else? Quantum relativistic physics, the standard model of matter, atom models, correct? And then how atoms combine. Where have we reached? Chemistry, correct? Okay, so you've learned the science of, or you've learned the mathematics of how atoms combine, correct? And then you combine two or more atoms, more and more atoms, bigger atoms. Like what? Biomolecules, proteins, correct? Yeah, so we say that one of the, like, what's the longest word in English? Anybody knows? How many characters does it have? No idea. Okay, it's the name of a protein called titin. The scientific name of this has, I don't know, more than 180,000 or something characters in it. Why? Because it's so big. And if I am to say the scientific name, which I do not know, nobody is going to know, because so many characters, right? So it's the name of a protein. Okay? So we are clubbing what? We are bonding more and more atoms to get biomolecules. Correct? And then we have what? Biochemistry. And through biochemistry, we can understand almost all biological processes. But have we understood? No, we are still in the process. Okay? So one thing you can notice here is, one thing that you can notice here is, as we move away from the formal sciences, we are getting in more and more inputs from the empirical sciences. That means we are learning more and more about the physical world, right? And as we learn more and more about the physical world, what happens? The complexity increases. And that's why we call it the hierarchy. Okay, at the foundation we have mathematics, and then we have astronomy, then we have physics, chemistry, and this is the model that who gave? Auguste Comte gave, right? Yes. But then I included more and more, and I made it more elaborate. Okay? Okay, so then through chemistry I can come to biochemistry. I can understand all the metabolism that are taking place in my body, including biogenesis or the cellular regeneration, mitosis, meiosis, all these things through what? Biochemistry, right? And all these are empirical sciences, correct? And as we go further from the formal sciences, the ability to be modeled through mathematics reduces. We have modeled the electricity that can come to each of these pixels, correct? We can engineer it. But remember, like when William Gilbert or Benjamin Franklin learned about electricity, did they know all the parameters of electricity? Did they know impedance? Did they know, say, more terms in physics that we learn, like say, did they learn capacitance, inductance? No. They did not know all these things. All they knew was like electricity, a lot of electricity. But the moment we started quantifying it, it has become a hard science. But as we go down, it's called softer and softer sciences. Why? Because the ability of the formal sciences to penetrate into it and to be modeled through formal sciences reduce. And therefore the exactitude, the ability to predict also would reduce. Okay? And then we have the social sciences. Okay? And there are many offshoots of all these knowledges, like say if you take chemistry, I can attach geology to it, correct? but that involves physics and astronomy as well. Geology is not just chemistry, right? So there are many offshoots. Like say if you take biology, we have zoology. Under zoology, we may have say animal psychology. Who knows ethology? Ethology is the study of animal behavior. Okay, so there are so many offshoots, but I'm giving you the big picture of how the knowledge flows from the formal sciences to the empirical sciences. But the question is, after coming to sociology, okay, can I mathematically model sociology? Yeah, to some extent, correct? How many of you have heard of the prisoner's dilemma in game theory? So all these things are just mathematical models of certain, also like how sociology could be modeled through game theory, like how people manipulate other people, and then there's a power dynamics, correct? So all these things could be modeled through sociology, but the problem here is I can understand the neurophysiology or the electrophysiology, the biochemistry, all of an ant, and I can say that I know everything about the ant, but the moment the ant becomes an ant colony, will the same rules apply? How do they interact? No, I can't use the same rules. So this reductionistic approach, what's reductionistic approach? Breaking it down into its components and thinking of each. Okay? But this reductionistic approach may fall apart. So what should we have to have? A holistic approach. So as you go down, the complexity increases to the point that I have to include what? Bigger pictures. Okay? Sociology is not just about all these things alone. Does it involve astronomy? Not talking about astrology, okay? Astronomy. Yeah, why not? Say if there is a solar flare, won't it affect us? Tides are affecting biology, right? The sea creatures, aren't they affected by the tides which are caused by the moon? Correct? So here you can see that there is a logical flow in the knowledge. So what I want you all teachers to have is the complete picture. You should know where each piece of knowledge stands. Okay? So it is this picture that we have to transfer to our students, and then they will know the place of each piece of knowledge in the entire mesh of knowledge. Okay, and not just that, we should also teach them to navigate through this entire mesh. So starting from somewhere, how can I reach another place? Like, how many of you know Venkatraman Ramakrishnan? Nobel laureate in chemistry. You know what he got the Nobel Prize for? Yes? Infrared. Okay, I'll tell you. So he was a physicist in the beginning. He used quantum physics to understand atoms. He understood how atoms combine. He used quantum physics to understand how molecules are made. Then he used, after a point you can't calculate. So you can use advanced computing techniques to use 3D modeling or bigger molecules. So what he did was, he did a lot of crystallography and other studies. He built the first 3D model of the messenger RNA, mRNA, which is a biomolecule. So now how many fields did he touch? So he started with math, physics, chemistry, and then he has reached biology. You understand? So it is this big picture that we have to transfer so that children can become bigger than Venkatraman Ramakrishnan. Because as humankind, as we progress, as we evolve, we should get smarter and smarter and smarter, right? Okay, so now we have come till sociology, right? We do have economics as well, which has a heavy load of what? Mathematics. And guess what? And this is where it becomes hazy. Is sociology coming from economics or economics coming from sociology? Okay, so here the hierarchy is a little hazy. Okay, because there are so many parameters involved. It's not so easy to predict an economic phenomenon. How many factors are involved? Like say, if I am to decide the price of this particular device, the microprocessor could be coming from Taiwan, correct? The screen could be coming from Korea. Different countries. And they all have their political problems, they have their economic problems, environmental problems, and you see finally this product here, correct? So now if you connect all these things and think, so is it the economics that controls the sociology, or is the sociology that controls the economics? So it becomes hazy, correct? So why does it become hazy? Because we still do not know all the parameters and their interconnectivity. Like how we know inductance, capacitance, all that could be measured and expressed through numbers. Okay, so there will be a day, we assume, that through the scientific method, we'll be able to study everything in this order. So I'm not going to say that this is how we have acquired all knowledge, but this is the route map of future knowledge. But the question is, does it end here? And in fact, Conte stopped at sociology, and then he included economics in sociology. Okay? And guess what? Economics is also psychology. What is it called? What is it called? It's called behavioral economics. Now, if I am to choose between, say, this shirt and another shirt, isn't that just a psychological decision? So our choices are psychological, correct? Which means, what is it? It's psychological as well, correct? Yeah. So now you can see that there is a logical flow here, right? So what are we learning about? The hierarchy of sciences. And outside sciences also there are so many things. Now my question is, can we include what we call normative sciences also under this hierarchy? What are normative sciences? Norms, social norms, values, morality, ethics, jurisprudence. What is jurisprudence? Law. The law of the court, right? So the question is, can we include all these things also? Okay, there's something called analytical jurisprudence. Means not how law is, but how law should be. Okay? So if you have to make a proper scientific way of building laws, then you can't make a law that contradicts physics. You can't make a law that contradicts biology. So you have to consider all these things and then come to this more complex process of building law, correct? So what if I just make a law that you should not fall down? That's against the physical law, right? That you will all fall down. Like if you trip over, then you will fall down. We just step one step forward. Gravity is always there, right? So you know what we are learning right now? epistemology, the structure of knowledge. Okay? So here, it doesn't end here. Epistemology is also about proof. Okay, what are the normative sciences that I said? Morality, ethics, correct? Jurisprudence. Can we build mathematical models for this? We are at a junction in the entire evolutionary history that it's imperative on us to build these models as well. Think of autonomous machines, cars, self-driving cars. You know the trolley problem in philosophy? Whether you have to let a trolley run over a person or 5 people. Should you act on it or should you not? So all these things are just philosophical questions. But now it's time to think of how we can mathematically model and put them into self-driving cars. Correct? So we have come to a point where we have to mathematically model everything. Okay? One of my friends who's working in AI, so earlier, if a bank has to give, say if they have to sanction a loan, what would they do? So it's the manager who decides how much loan or how much credibility, how much creditworthy a person is, right? But now we have models. Okay, AI models that can give us better prediction of a person's creditworthiness. How? Because computers have been gathering all the information about you. A manager might know about what? Maybe 3 or 4 things about you. But computers have been gathering a lot of information about you. Not just about your credit card. And so they know what? Which restaurant you go to. Because it's tracking your location. Correct? So, okay, whether it's ethically and morally right is a different question, but it's happening, correct? Yes. So now what did I just tell you? The grand structure of knowledge. Is that is all there in knowledge? No. More than sciences, we do have what? Other things as well. Like, can folklore be called knowledge? Say there are some indigenous knowledges. Okay, a tribe knows about a specific herb. So will that be called knowledge? Yes, that'll also be called knowledge, right? But will that be called scientific? As long as that cannot fit into this grand structure, we're not going to call it scientific, but it can be proto-science. Means maybe the beginning of a new science. Correct? Or it could be pseudoscience. We could just refute it with or statistical analysis. We can just prove that it's wrong through mathematical studies or clinical trials. Correct? So, what have we seen? The grand formal structure of just science alone. But how about stories, literature? Is that knowledge? Yes. So, those are all just subjective realities. The science is an objective reality, right? Like, if there's a person who can just think of something beyond, who can transcend human knowledge, then what would we say? Now he is schizophrenic, correct? But he might know things that are well ahead of what? Maybe our generation. We do not know, correct? But since it doesn't fit into this grand structure of knowledge, we'll say, oh, time hasn't come for this person's knowledge. Okay? Al-Haytham. How many of you know this person? He is considered the father of modern science. Okay, Europeans will call Bacon the father of modern science, or somebody like, say, Descartes or Galileo is the father of modern science. But Al-Haytham was the first person who taught us that knowledge should be achieved through both empirical and logical way. In fact, the whole of 20th century knowledge, 20th and 21st century knowledge was based on one philosophical school. It's called the logical empiricist school. And the foundation for that was the analytic and linguistic philosophy. You know how powerful it was? Everything that we know of now, everything that we've gathered in the last century, almost all I would say, is through this analytic and linguistic philosophy. You know, you should read Wittgenstein, Russell, these philosophers, and many others also. There's continental philosophy as well. Okay? So these are all the philosophy behind knowledge. But at the same time, you can also read Pramana Shastra of India. We have like Anumana, inferential knowledge. Pratyaksha means what? What's right before us. Empirical knowledge, what you observe. Okay? Shabda means what we hear. Okay? And then there's another one. Arthapatti means postulates. Anupalabdhi. Anupalabdhi, an means not, upalabdhi means availability, anupalabdhi means unavailable. So when something is unavailable, you can infer something from it, right? So we have different epistemological keys, okay, different ways on how to achieve knowledge. So we have to first set the criteria on what can be called knowledge. So this criteria can differ from people to people. Like say for Abrahamic religions, they have their prophets, correct? Anything what the prophet says is true. So they have to assume that that is the foundational statement. That's the criterion for them, right? There are people who believe that whatever comes in the dreams are true. So they have to assume that as the criterion for knowledge, correct? But for the current scientific community, we have certain standards, okay? And these standards are set through what? Through the proper philosophy of science. Anybody knows any science philosophers? Okay, that is like some 2000 years back. Aristotle, yes. Yeah, he was. Plato, Aristotle, all were, yes. So, louder please. Rousseau he was a political philosopher. Yeah, Rousseau, Voltaire and all were political philosophers. Okay. Any philosophers of science?
Ptolemy.
Yeah, Ptolemy again 2000 years back. Anybody else? How many of you heard of Karl Popper? A recent one. He died recently, okay? So who was Karl Popper? He is the one who gave us the golden standard of what can be termed as scientific. Okay? Okay. Question is, how much more time we have? How much more can I extend? Half an hour? Okay. Okay. So now, there's a condition. It's called falsifiability. So when you make a statement in science, it should be made in a way that it can be falsified. What does that mean? That if I say that there's an invisible pink unicorn in this room which is undetectable, how can I prove that it exists or it doesn't? You made this statement in such a way that it can never be proven wrong or right. Correct? So you have to make a clear statement that should be said in a way that could be proven false. Like say if you believe in a certain, say, a Baba who claims that they can or he can cure a specific disease, okay, then how do we check his claim? We have proper clinical trials, right? So what we would do is we'll see the healing rate of a control group, and then we'll see how much it deviates from the people who are going to this Baba. He might have some secret medicine, correct? Yeah. No, as a proper person with a proper scientific mentality, we are not going to discredit, suspend, or dismiss this particular possibility, okay? Like say when long back there was something called bishop's powder. You know, these bishops, they went to South America and they gathered some powder and they started spreading it as some divine powder. You know what they were selling? Quinine. Okay, so there's a plant called cinchona. So then you find the brew, the extract of it, you get a powder, and then you just powder it, and that can cure malaria, right? So this bishop had the same way. Some Baba might have some special medicine. We are not going to discredit this Baba, but we are going to do what? A proper clinical trial. And then we will study if there is any significant difference in the control group and the other group. Okay, so we have again what? A mathematical way, a proper way. And after studying this, a great correlation doesn't mean causation, right? Then we have to study the pharmacokinetics, how the medicine works on the body. So then we will see the molecular action, how the active ingredient goes into the body through the pathways, correct? All these things we should be able to explain through the grand structure. Are there structures that are incoherent with this, and then will we still call it knowledge? Yes, why not? Okay, so we have a grand structure, and there could be another structure which might not fit with this. So what is our job? We'll see if we can connect. Can I just hold contradicting ideas in my head, or should I have to believe only in one? So the purpose of education is to come to a reconciliation. It's like, say, running a computer with software that are incompatible with each other. So now think of a computer that can run both. So that is what you call a powerful computer, right? So you need a better brain that can hold all these contradicting ideas, but you should try to find some reconciliation, or through all these empirical or logical analysis, you should be able to. We are not going to reject it completely. We are going to say that the possibility or the probability of it is extremely low, and therefore it's useless. You get it? So this idea, this viewpoint of science as a tool, not as the reality itself, is called instrumentalism in philosophy. Okay, so there is an instrumentalist school as well in philosophy who think science is not the absolute reality, but is just a useful tool. So as we get more and more pieces of evidence, counter evidences, or as we get more knowledge, we'll just keep amending or even discarding, and then we will build new pieces, build new structures. Okay, and that is the beauty of science. Okay, so now we've been learning about science, correct? And then I just slowly, without you all knowing, I just went into reality as well. So what is ontology? Is the study of reality. Okay, is scientific reality the only reality? No, we do not know. It's like if there is a miracle that happens, there are people who will completely reject it, saying, no, that didn't happen. Okay, a proper scientist would say, oh, that might have happened, But what's the possibility, the probability? Or it could be a fraudster trying to trick you, correct? So we have another technique called the Bayesian network. Maths teachers, you know about Thomas Bayes' law, right? Probability, conditional probability. So when a thing has already occurred, to go back in time or to go back and find out the path through which it could have occurred, and then you have to find the probability that has occurred solely through this specific case. Okay, so what do you call this? It's called the Bayesian network. Okay, and then we'll find out, and if the probability is extremely low, we'll say that it's useless to go behind this. We have better things which have higher correlation, higher. Okay, so science works as a tool there, based on what? The utility. Okay, so science is not the only absolute reality. Only if scientists are open to other realities as well. But doesn't mean that you have to accept everything. Once it is proven wrong, you don't have to hold on to it. Okay, so nobody is going to understand the realities that is there. Okay, why? Because until Maxwell, James Clerk Maxwell, we did not know electromagnetic waves existed. Correct? Until Rontgen, we did not know X-rays existed. Okay, so as we expand our knowledge, there are new things coming into our knowledge. So we must build a dynamic system. This, whatever I just drew here, is not static, it's dynamic. Okay, to include, like in the light of new knowledge, new evidences, you have to amend or maybe discard old theories, build new theories, and it is an ever-going process. And it is this that we have to teach our children, to build this dynamic model, not to have strong convictions, instead this analytic and critical mind to build the knowledge structure. It could be their own personal knowledge structure or the objective knowledge structure, and the child should know what is personal and what is objective. Okay, okay, now to do all these things, what is that one thing that we need? The mind. So the third topic that I want to discuss on is cognitive science. It's a big topic. How many more minutes can I go? 10, 15, 20? Okay. Yeah, see, I'm not a biology teacher. I'm a math teacher. Okay? But in fact, in my school days, I thought that biology was all about memorizing a lot of things. My father had a workshop where we used to build machines. Okay? So right from a very young age, I was interested in building machines. Okay? So we used to design machines, we used to make them, not on a production basis, like prototyping and all. Okay? So I started learning engineering, and then I was interested in designing machines, more complex machines. And then I realized that the most complex machine is our body. Okay? And then I developed the interest. Oh, come on. I started learning about it. Okay? And then one thing that caught my attention was cognitive science, because I've already started teaching. Okay? So as teachers, you might be from different background, maybe a math teacher, a science teacher, physics teacher. But at the same time, as teachers, what are you supposed to learn first? Because you're going to work on that, the human mind. Correct? Human mind is the software, and it runs on what? The hardware called the brain, this 1400 grams of this jelly-like substance in your head. That's the seat of all emotions, intelligence, and all that you know of, right? So your knowledge, your emotions, your learning, your behavior, your intelligence, everything is going to depend on this brain. And therefore, as teachers, you should first learn how the brain works. And I'm not here to tell you how neurons work. You all might know. And it works on electricity, right? How many of you know that brain works on electricity? Yeah, all biology teachers know. Yeah, it's the electricity running through the neurons. That's what you call thought, correct? So just like how in a processor you have many, what do you call them? Flip-flops and registers, right? Electronics teachers here? No. Okay. So when electricity runs through many, say, transistors, flip-flops, registers, semiconductors, you have what? The processor processing, and you have whatever software you run on, okay? And the same way, the brain runs on what? The hardware. I mean, the mind runs on the hardware. Mind is not just the brain, since the software is not the hardware, but it's the hardware that's the foundation for it, and therefore you have to learn what? The brain. Okay? Like, I can tell you an example. So when you passively listen to a lecture, so we have different styles of learning, right? Active learning, passive learning, correct? Now you should learn about the various cognitive psychologists and their works. Okay, you might have heard of Vygotsky. Anybody? Brenda Milner? Any contemporary biologist you know of? You're a biology teacher, right? Yeah. Have you heard of Eric Kandel? No, okay. So all like those who are studying the brain, okay, there are many. I tell my students, now if you just passively listen to a lecture, you're just activating one part of your brain called the vernix area. It's in the left temporal lobe, just right behind your ear here, okay? So this part is the part that enables you to have what? Yes, language understanding, not just listening. When you read language or when you listen, only vernix area is getting activated, right? Okay, now for speech production, to form language, for proper sentence, coherent sentence formation, you need another place in the brain, and again in the left temporal lobe, called the Broca's area. So what can this do? This is what, like say if you just simply listen to my lecture, you won't be able to reproduce it. Now to reproduce it, you should activate your Broca's area. So after gathering the knowledge that is understood through the vernix area, you have to hold on to it through your either short-term memory or the long-term memory, correct? But then you have to pass this information to the Broca's area through a bundle of nerves called the arcuate fasciculus. Okay, so now that goes to the Broca's area, and then the Broca's area has to make a coherent sentence, and then you should use the motor cortex, okay, the prefrontal gyrus, yeah, so that is what controls speech. Also, the motor cortex basically, okay, the parietal lobe and all those things. Okay, so we are engaging more and more parts of the brain as we let children speak. Okay, so what do we say? Shut up. No, right after teaching them, ask them to repeat it. Also, like say if you're learning something, don't just make it into a verbal statement. Can I make it into a logical statement? or a visual representation. So you're activating more and more faculties of the brain, right? So to process your visual information, you need your occipital lobe. So they're here, correct? So you're activating your visual cortex. Okay, so now if you are including, say, empathy into it, sympathy into it, or like say music into it. Okay, so there is another place called the anterior insula. Okay, that is again like say if you lift off the temporal lobe, you can see this. So when you're learning math through just mathing alone, you're just processing it with your frontal cortex. But say if you are to not just the frontal cortex, you're including other parts as well, like say if it is retrieved from the long-term memory, you know the function of hippocampus as the thing that converts the short-term memory to the long-term memory, right? So everywhere, you like if you engage in whatever the subject is, if you engage more and more faculties of the brain, it'll be easy for us to retrieve. So everything that we learn is just broken up into different types of memory. Like what? Like if I am going through a physical space, okay? That's an episode, correct? All my senses are involved. So that memory will be called the episodic memory. Then if I'm reading something, I'm understanding the meaning of it. And that's called the semantic memory. You know where the semantic memory is stored? Again in the left temporal lobe. Okay? But like, how about the faces? Face recognition. So that's again in different parts of the brain, mainly in the right brain, in the place called the fusiform gyrus. So you have different faculties of the brain learning different parts of the same thing. So if you include pictures in math, not like say Ram is going to the shop and then he's buying and then you put the Ram there and then buying something. No. Can you express equations through pictures? Yes, we should be able to. Okay? I can give you a short demo if time permits. Or we are going to have furthermore lectures, right? We are going to have lectures with individual subject teachers. Okay? So if we include pictures, music, and then like you are including more and more into it. Like say one of my students who did his math IA, you know what he did? Expressing Platonic solids. How many math teachers know what Platonic solids are? Yeah, there are 5 Platonic solids. Expressing Platonic solids through music. Is that possible? Should be, right? You might not see the direct connection, but we've had a discussion. Ma'am, we've had a discussion on this, right? Yeah, like in the last meeting, we've had a discussion on how to use Fourier analysis for noise reduction in sound, or like say any acoustic instrument. Okay, so it's not just pictures alone, it's utility also you have to see. So engage children in building things using math. Okay, and their capability of doing things is far beyond what you all can imagine, because we didn't have the proper exposure as we grew up. That doesn't mean that we have to transfer the same incapability to our children as well, right? There are so many researches on cognitive science, on how we can deliver knowledge. Okay? We have Ganesh, have you heard of this name? Okay, his instructional design on how to deliver knowledge. Okay, so I don't know where it is. Let it be there. So we have to keep learning. It's not just math alone. Can we apply math in music, in art? How many math teachers are interested in art? You are interested in art? Okay, which style of art? Any specific style? Cubism, excellent. Picasso, yeah, okay. Any other style, anybody? Tessellations from Escher, MC Escher. See, so we can express math through art. Wonderful. Escher was an artist who actually became an inspiration for mathematicians, because this art included mathematical things in it, like tessellation and all, which inspired mathematicians to achieve more. In fact, Roger Penrose, how many of you know this person? Roger Penrose, mathematician, Penrose tiling, all these things. Roger Penrose, like, he got the Nobel Prize a couple of years back in physics. He is a great mathematician. Okay, so all I have to say is that as teachers, we should never stop learning. Okay, so when we confine ourselves to our field of expertise alone, then we are not good teachers. You should know the entire structure, the big picture. You don't have to learn everything. But at least, like, say, don't you know the world map? You know where Europe is, right? Yeah. Is it to the north of India, to the west of India, to the south of India? You at least know the position. The same way, like, you should know at least where in the entire mesh of knowledge each subject is. Okay? And you should know a little things about everything. You should keep learning a lot. Okay? I am not a biologist, I'm not a doctor, I'm not anything that you're thinking of. Okay? And I call myself a teacher because I teach. Okay? My mail ID is tutorsujith@gmail.com, at gmail.com. Okay? So I call myself a tutor, a teacher. And I am a teacher. I could have gone to many other professions, but I'm teaching. Okay? So it's not just teaching alone that I do. I can train teachers on how to teach. Train in this sense, I'm just sharing my knowledge of how I do it. You may be doing it better. I'm coming here to have a two-way conversation. That's what I said first, but it was more like an oration. So, but then we are going to have more sessions, right? So I hope in future you all will cooperate and will engage in more intellectual conversations. Okay, I think the given time is over. I can just go on and on and on. Okay, what do you think? We'll wind up? You all should be hungry, right? The brain wouldn't work if there isn't enough glucose. Okay, you liked my speech? Was it good? Okay, it was only good. Oh, okay. So, there's a lot more. Okay, what is Gagne? Gagne is theory of instructional designs. Gagne is learning models. Like, I can teach you, no. I can share you, say, what Atkinson-Shiffrin model of memory is. Okay, I can tell you the neurobiology of memory, like the studies of Eric Kandel, or like how food can affect memory, how hormones can affect memory. Okay, like, you might not think that our bones are related to memory. As a biology teacher, did you know that our bones are also related to memory? Because osteocalcin is a hormone that's making up our bones. Also, recent studies show that it is also related to what? Memory. Okay? Like age-related dementia. You know what is controlling it? It's osteocalcin. Okay? No, these are just pieces of information that I gather when I just see some lectures. YouTube is there, and there are many other lectures available, right? But then you should know whom to listen to. Correct? Okay. I'll wind up with a small experiment, and then you'll see what I'm trying to say. You are not supposed to discuss this with your friends here, or with your person sitting close to you. I'm going to draw two structures on the board, okay? Without any logical thinking, you have to name them as, okay, I'll draw the figure, okay? Hey, no, not this. Where did that come from? Okay. Oh, no, that's too thin. Okay, you call it amoeba? Okay. Okay. No. Don't name them now. I'll tell you what the names are, and you should know which one is which one, okay? And guess what? It's not any logic. You just think of what is what. Okay, one of them is Kiki and the other is Baoba. Okay? Now you know which one is Kiki and which one is Baoba, right? Okay. Which one is Baoba? How many of you think that it's Baoba? And how about others? How many? Like I must see. Okay. And this is Kiki, right? Guess what? And how many of you think the otherwise? Oh, very few, which means some did not engage in this activity, right? They just wanted to be spectators. Okay. So what I mean to say is, all those who responded, you can clearly see that the vast majority will say what? That this is Baoba and this is Kiki. You know what I'm talking about? No. Yes. What? Sound? Structures. Okay. So what I'm talking about is a special ability that some people have. It's called synesthesia. It was considered a disease. But then now, okay. But now it's considered a boon. You know why? When some people hear certain sounds, they can associate it with maybe some colors or some shapes. Okay? Like say if you see some equations, what if I see some pictures? Okay? So what is this called? Synesthesia. A person who has this ability is called a synesthete. So what happens is like one stimulus which is supposed to activate its corresponding set of receptors, it might activate a few other receptors as well. Okay, like say sound can activate a few, say, optical nerves. Okay, it's some mismatch of a wrong wiring in the brain. Okay, yeah, but then they're engaging more parts of the brain, right? They're not just including just one stimulus alone. They're engaging more parts of the brain, and they turn out to be what? Smart people. Okay? And this exercise was to tell you that we've all had this synesthesia as kids. Okay? But we lost it somewhere. Okay? Do you know who suggested this experiment? Okay, it's a neuroscientist called Villayanurus Ramachandran. Okay, with this, we'll wind up. We'll have lunch and then you all can go back to your classes, okay? Okay. Hope I could share good information, and if I sounded a little authoritative, I apologize for that. I can see that there are many more senior teachers here. You all might know more than what I know, but it's only that I'm quite articulative about my knowledge, so I can express it. And maybe I have a better developed broadcast area. If you all develop your broadcast area, you will also be able to articulate your ideas. Okay? Okay. Bye bye for today.